In the third year of my long-distance relationship, I secretly returned to the country on my boyfriend's birthday. But I unexpectedly saw him getting out of a car holding a woman's hand. His face was full of impatience, yet he was being very careful. Grandma Smith was nagging behind him. "Jessie is a great contributor to our family. She is carrying my precious great-grandchild. You must treat her well." Oh, my boyfriend is going to be someone else's father. Ding! This novel reminds you to click the subscribe button in the bottom right corner to read the complete novel. The three of them chatted and laughed as they entered the villa. I stood behind the camphor tree. At my feet were two large suitcases. In these years of studying abroad, I had hardly ever returned to the country. Whenever Reuben Smith's birthday approached, he would always complain. "Lydia, in your heart, the cold scalpel is more important than me." This time, I worked day and night for 3 months to complete the tasks assigned by my mentor, just so I could take leave and return on his birthday. To surprise Reuben, I lied and said I had exams and couldn't come back. I didn't inform anyone and took a taxi to the Smith family home right after landing. I fantasized about our reunion scene. Would it be a hug or a French kiss? But before I could drop my suitcases and run into his arms, I was hit hard by a harsh reality. "Reuben, Jessie is having morning sickness again. You need to think of a way to help." Grandma Smith's words clearly reached my ears through the air. Plop. The 8-inch cake in my hand fell to the ground. The words "Happy Birthday Reuben" on the cake turned into a mess. Morning sickness. Who is pregnant? After returning home, I opened my long-unused social media account and found Reuben's alt account in my followers list. Following the clues, I found Jessica Foster's social media account. The most recent post said, "You were unexpected, but also a surprise." The time was a month ago. The picture was of a girl touching her small belly in a pregnancy photo. The girl wore black-framed glasses, had shoulder-length black wavy hair, and smiled shyly. But also very kindly. This post had 5 likes. One of them was Reuben Smith. My heart gradually sank. At the same time, Jessica Foster updated her status again. "Tomorrow is the prenatal checkup. I hope everything goes well." Reuben liked it immediately. Reuben Smith is not someone who likes posts often. Since he liked it, and it was late at night, it showed that his relationship with this Jessica Foster was not shallow. My last bit of hope was shattered. I grabbed a blanket, covered my face, and curled up into a ball. I wiped away the tears on my face harshly. "Reuben Smith, you have gone too far. You turned my years of love into a joke." The cold I caught at night hit me hard, and even though I took medicine, my fever didn't go down. So early the next morning, I went to the hospital. Unexpectedly, I ran into Reuben Smith and Jessica Foster, who were there for a prenatal checkup. "Jessica, why are you running around? Don't you know you're preg?" Reuben's last word halted abruptly when he saw me. He was surprised and delighted. "Lydia? You're back? Weren't you taking exams?" He rushed over, trying to grab my hand, but I instinctively avoided him. Quickly, he realized and belatedly grew flustered. "Lydia, let me explain." Before he could finish, Jessica suddenly stepped between us. "I'm sorry, this child was an accident." She caressed her belly. "Reuben, no, Mr. Smith, he has always loved you the most. He's been waiting for you." After a pause, she turned her gaze to Reuben, bit her lip, and continued. "I just want to have this child. After all, the child is innocent." Reuben followed her lead. "Yes, Lydia, nothing will change between us." The two of them sang in harmony, cooperating seamlessly. Seeing this, I sneered and asked Reuben, "So you mean I should be a stepmother of your child? Should I thank you both for allowing me to become a mother without having to go through the pain of childbirth?" Reuben's face turned a bit ugly, having been publicly rebuked. "Lydia, don't talk like that." "Then how should I talk?" "Reuben Smith, thank you for your unwavering love. Even if your body will be someone else's father, your soul will always love me." Reuben's face turned livid with anger. He clenched his fist, trying to reach out to pull me. I easily avoided him and twisted his wrist back. Pressed down hard. "I'm sorry, Miss Lydia, it's my fault, all my fault." Jessica's tearful voice suddenly rang out. Ruben got anxious and lightly scolded her. Why are you crying? Go for your checkup, don't let your mind wander. Seeing this scene, I suddenly felt it was all meaningless, so I curled my lips and turned to leave. Ruben reflexively tried to follow, but Jessica grabbed his wrist. Ruben, my stomach hurts. Ruben's shouting voice immediately echoed in the hall. Where's the doctor? Doctor! If anything happens to the child, you're all fired. Before I went abroad, I often had minor injuries and pains. Ruben was always nervous, troubling his personal doctor. If she's not better by tomorrow, you can pack your things and leave. Every time, I would coldly reprimand him. I'm the one who got hurt, why are you making things difficult for others? After that, he would control his temper and rarely take it out on others. I didn't expect Ruben's domineering statements to resurface with Jessica. Our 8 years of relationship seemed particularly absurd at this moment. By the time I got home after my 4-drip, it was already noon. A college classmate, Helen, who I hadn't contacted for a long time, tagged me in our class group chat. I clicked to see what it was. She had posted a high-definition photo of Ruben holding Jessica in a Princess Carrie. In the photo, Ruben looked very anxious, while Jessica was protecting her slightly protruding belly with both hands. Big news! Isn't this Lydia's rich and handsome boyfriend? At Lydia, did you get dumped? The group chat exploded with discussions. Back in college, Ruben would come to my school every few days, saying he was afraid someone else would covet me and he needed to assert his claim. At that time, he was sunny and handsome, driving a bright red Ferrari, causing a lot of girls to scream. The news that Lydia, the campus belle, was taken was known all over the school, and I became the object of many girls' envy. Helen was one of them. Now, she had captured a photo of Ruben holding another woman, and she was as excited as if she had taken a stimulant. At the same time, Ruben sent me several messages. Lydia, wait for me to explain when I have time, it's not what you think. Jessica and I are both in a difficult situation, the child is innocent. Except for this, I have never wronged you in any way. We've been together for so many years, you have to trust me, don't let this little thing ruin our love. I gripped my phone, my nails turning white. A little thing? It doesn't affect our love? How could he say that? In the class group, people kept tagging me, either gossiping or mocking. Once, many people envied me for having a prince charming like Ruben, but now just as many people were mocking that my youth was wasted. Looking at the black text on a white background, a sour taste suddenly rose in my throat. I rushed to the bathroom, leaned over the toilet. And I threw up. After throwing up, looking at my haggard reflection in the mirror, I suddenly understood my mother's feelings. Men, indeed, can't be relied on. Ruben Smith, what right does he have? He got another woman pregnant and still expects me to wait for him? What a dreamer. I decisively left the class group on my phone. Who I'm with, whether I break up or not, is my private matter, not their gossip material. Then I dug out all the photos with Ruben and burned them. I sorted out all the gifts he had given me over the years and put them online for sale at a discount. If they didn't sell, I'd give them away with free shipping. Finally, I found Ruben's contact and sent him a message, I'll pick up Milo this evening. Milo is a British Shorthair, given to me by a friend after 3 years of my dating. Ruben once said Milo was gentle and cute, just like our child. I had planned to take Milo abroad, but Ruben insisted on keeping him, saying, if you're not around, let Milo stay with me instead. So, Milo was sent to the Smith house. For the past 3 years, Ruben had almost daily sent me photos of Milo. He said, our baby is so cute. Does she look more like you or me? But now, Ruben has another child. Milo should come back to me. She is my child, not Ruben's pet. After sending the message, I blocked all of Ruben's contacts. My mother always said, if you don't cut it off cleanly, it will bring endless trouble. I've already hit the wall once. I won't hit it again. As the sun was setting, I arrived at the Smith residence. To my surprise, it was Grandma Smith who opened the door for me. Unlike her usual amiable self, this time she was very wary. With her arms crossed over her chest, she looked me up and down. I'm telling you, Reuben already has Jessie, and their child will be born soon. Since you chose your studies, don't cling to Reuben anymore. If Reuben abandons Jessie and their child because of you, I won't let you off." The golden rays of the setting sun shone on her, dyeing her hair golden, making her look like a lion with its fur standing on end. The old lady was obsessed with her great-grandson. She used to hope I would give up my medical studies to marry Reuben Smith and have children. But for a medical student to succeed, they had to study until they got a PhD, and who knew when she would be able to hold her great-grandson. Reuben didn't agree, so she urged marriage every day and brewed all sorts of concoctions for me to conceive. Now that she had a ready-made great-grandson, she naturally wanted to remove all obstacles for him. I raised the cat carrier. I'm here to pick up Milo. Don't worry, I'm not so self-degrading as to steal someone else's child's father. Grandma Smith was visibly relieved and laughed heartily. Then come, I'll take you. I've long told Reuben to get rid of that cat. Jessie is pregnant. What if the cat has toxoplasmosis or something? But Reuben stubbornly refused, saying this was his child. I think he's lost his mind. His child is in Jessie's belly. How could it be a cat? The old lady kept rambling on until I stepped into the villa and saw a scene of a hero saving a beauty. The girl was wearing a pale yellow knee-length dress, her arms around the man's neck, their eyes locked in a deep gaze. This scene stabbed my heart with a sudden pang of sourness. After all, I had loved him. Letting go completely was not as easy as I had imagined. Grandma Smith clapped her hands and winked at me. Lydia, look, don't you think my great-grandson's parents make a perfect couple? Hearing this, Reuben suddenly pushed Jessica away, standing there somewhat at a loss. Jessica was taken aback, then her face flushed red as she stammered to explain. No, it's not what you think. She took small steps towards me. I almost fell just now, and Mr. Smith just helped me up. There's nothing between us. Don't misunderstand. Grandma Smith's face instantly turned cold when she heard this, her gaze towards me suddenly frosty. Before Grandma Smith could speak, I turned to Reuben and said, "It has nothing to do with me. I'm just here to pick up Milo." Reuben went upstairs without a word. The room at the far end of the left turn on the second floor used to be the Smith family's storage room. Reuben opened the door, and I looked inside. Milo was confined in a stainless steel cage, her head drooping, listlessly licking her paws occasionally. Milo. I called softly, my voice choked. Hearing my voice, Milo suddenly became excited. She pounced on the cage, her tail high, her deep brown eyes shining like brilliant gems. Meow. She whimpered at me, her tail swaying. I quickly opened the cage, took Milo out, and stroked her fur. Milo closed her eyes comfortably. Reuben Smith, is this how you treat Milo? Is the Smith house so big that it can't accommodate a cat? My eyes reddened, and I couldn't help but question him. Milo was well-behaved and clingy, and hated being confined. Once, when I went out for a competition and accidentally locked Milo in the room. 2 days later when I returned, I found the cat food untouched. Reuben's face darkened. Just as he was about to say something, Jessica interrupted. Lydia, don't blame Mr. Smith, it's all because of me, she said, reaching out to pet Milo. But Milo arched her back and hissed, her claws leaving a scratch on Jessica's arm. Hiss. Jessica winced in pain, tears welling up instantly. Reuben nervously pulled her to his side, frowning as he examined the wound 3 times before he sighed in relief. Then he looked at me, his eyes filled with an impenetrable gloom. In the 8 years we were together, he was always gentle, sunny, and clingy in front of me, never showing such an expression. Lydia, using an animal to harm an innocent girl, when did you become so vicious? The little Milo, whom he called an animal, was trembling in my arms, still in shock. I comforted her, coldly looking at Reuben. When you like her, she's a baby. When you don't, she's an animal. I think animals have more humanity than you. Ignoring Reuben's eyes that were about to blaze with anger, I sneered. Reuben Smith, we are completely over. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. And, you really disgust me. The innocent crystalline tears that Jessica shed turned into soft daggers that Reuben and Grandma Smith used to stab me. Grandma Smith cursed me with reddened eyes. Reuben looked at me coldly. I don't remember how I walked out of the Smith family home. But since that day, I never saw them again. I started using this break time to accompany my mom at work. And my mom also turned down some social engagements to go shopping and relax with me. Our mother-daughter relationship improved rapidly. I made up my mind that once my cold was gone, I would pack my bags and return to my stage. But I didn't expect. A week later, Jessica Foster came to see me. She was standing outside the door, wearing a sky-blue maternity dress, her face slightly rounded, beginning to show a maternal glow. "Miss Lydia, can I come in and sit for a while?" She smiled nervously, with a touch of humility. I couldn't bring myself to make things difficult for a pregnant woman. After all, besides carrying Reuben's child, she hadn't done anything that actually hurt me. At most, she's just a bit of a manipulative fake innocent. How about we go outside? If anything happened to her in my house, the Smith family would certainly not let it go easily. Although I wasn't afraid of them, I didn't want to cause trouble. Okay. She agreed readily. From the time I knew her until now, she seemed to always play the role of being obedient, weak, and trying to please others. Never angry, never resisting. We found a cafe. She held a cup of hot milk and started speaking with a smile. "Miss Lydia, I know you're very upset. I came to explain everything to you. But actually, I wasn't very interested. To me, the past didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that from now on, Reuben Smith would no longer be part of my life. I would love my career and love my mom. If I said something wrong, please give me a chance to talk." Her eyes were moist. "I beg you." From Jessica Foster's words, I learned the whole story. Her brother failed in business and owed the Smith family a debt. So, the male preferential Foster family drugged her and Reuben Smith at a party. That time, she got pregnant. She wanted to secretly get an abortion, but her mother found out, and the matter reached the Smith family. Eager for a great-grandchild, Grandma Smith brought Jessica Foster to the Smith family, wiped out the Foster family's debt, and then threatened Reuben with her life to accept Jessica. "Mr. Smith really loves you. After you said you were breaking up, he seemed fine on the surface. But several times he got himself drunk under the pretense of socializing. Miss Lydia, he can't live without you." Jessica bit her lip, her eyes filled with sorrow, but she also seemed relieved as if she had completed a significant task. I looked at her, a bit puzzled. This girl seemed to have simple thoughts, not like a person with a manipulative fake innocent the first had previously thought. It seemed like she genuinely wanted me and Reuben Smith to get back together. "Don't you love Reuben?" I suddenly became curious. Her fingers tightened around the cup. "I don't matter." I was a bit surprised. What kind of environment could lead her to undervalue herself so much? But I wasn't in a position to advise her. Finally, I stood up and scanned the code to pay for the coffee. Before leaving, I thought for a moment and then turned around to say, "Miss Foster, Reuben Smith is already a thing of the past in my life. I will move forward, not look back." After saying that, I walked out of the cafe. If I had felt a bit unwilling before meeting Jessica, after meeting her, I had completely let go. Not because I lost to Jessica, but because Reuben, he was never worth it in the first place. Jessica got pregnant, and there were countless ways to solve the problem, but Reuben chose the weakest, most incompetent one. He chose to compromise, to be led by the nose. Whether it was by Grandma Smith or the Foster family. And after making that choice, he didn't want to lose everything from before, including me. I suddenly felt that being a love-struck fool was really undesirable. Otherwise, how could I have not seen that Reuben Smith was such a person before? After figuring it out, my steps became light, the shadows of the trees swaying beside the sidewalk. "Watch out!" Suddenly, a terrified scream came from behind. I instinctively turned around. A large truck surged over the curb, driving out of control towards me. My body was paralyzed with fear. The speed and direction of the car clearly meant to take my life. I trembled all over, closed my eyes in despair, and waited for death to come. 3 seconds later, I was suddenly yanked by a strong force and fell to the ground. At the same time, the truck grazed my right arm, and a sharp pain surged through me. I screamed in agony and passed out. When I woke up again, I was in the hospital. White ceiling, white walls, white sheets, a vast expanse of white, just like my heart, empty and hollow. Tears streamed down from the corners of my eyes, only to be gently wiped away by someone. "Why are you crying?" I turned my head. It was my mom. She seemed to have lost weight, her makeup was smudged, not as exquisite and elegant as usual. "Mom." My voice was very hoarse, as if it had been scorched by fire. "My hand, can I no longer hold a scalpel?" My arm was in a cast, the pain was obvious. If my hand was broken, then "It's okay, don't worry, you just have a fracture, you'll be fine after some rest." What should have been a relief, my mom's face suddenly turned cold. She stood up and pulled a document out of her bag. "Don't you want to know who wants to kill you?" She seemed to squeeze out these words between clenched teeth, her voice trembling. A few vague figures flashed through my mind. Helen, who can't stand me. No, she's all talk and definitely doesn't have the guts for this. With great confusion, I opened the document. The moment I saw the words, my pupils shrank in shock, and I felt like I was plunged into an icy abyss. How could it be her? Why would she do this? The information my mom investigated clearly showed that the mastermind was Grandma Smith. That old lady with silver hair and a toothless smile. It's hard to believe, but my mom's findings are never wrong. In her 20-plus years in the business world, my mom's network is extensive, even more so than the Smiths. I continued to flip through the documents. The old lady seemed ignorant of the law, the evidence of her hiring a hitman was not hidden at all. The truck driver's child had leukemia and urgently needed money for treatment. Grandma Smith personally approached him, gave him my photo, and then transferred $1 million directly from her account, instructing him to seize the opportunity to run me over. But I had no grudge against her, and during the time I was with Reuben Smith, we got along quite well as grandmother and granddaughter-in-law. Why would she hire someone to kill me? Seeing my confusion, my mom crossed her arms. "It's not hard to understand. After you returned to the country, Reuben often drank himself into a stupor. Not only did he argue with the old lady, but he also caused that woman to be hospitalized twice to save her pregnancy. The old lady was worried about her precious great-grandson and chose a permanent solution. Is she crazy? Reuben was the one drinking, and Reuben was the one causing her great-grandson's pregnancy issues. Why blame me and try to kill me? I was so angry my face turned pale, and the thin sheets of paper were crumpled tightly in my hand. I never thought the reason for my near death would be so absurd. I pulled out my phone, just about to make a call. Suddenly, a burst of angry shouting came from the hospital room door. "Jinx! Why doesn't she just die?" Great, I hadn't even confronted her yet, and the instigator was already here cursing up a storm. The old lady, barely 5 feet tall, with a face full of wrinkles, looked somewhat ferocious in her anger. She tried to storm in but was firmly blocked by the bodyguards at the door. My gaze fell on my right hand. My mentor said it was born to save lives. And now, it was covered in plaster. Just a bit more, and I would never have been able to hold a scalpel again. The old lady was still yelling, her voice getting louder. I looked up at her, my hatred growing. "Let her in." Freed, the old lady rushed in like a madwoman, her bony fingers painted with bright red nail polish, like a vengeful ghost. She pointed at me, almost spitting in my face. "Witch! Why don't you just die? It's all your fault my precious great-grandson is dead. I'll kill you." She ranted like a lunatic, jumping and cursing. After venting, she wasn't satisfied and grabbed a vase from the table, ready to smash it on me, but Jessica Foster rushed in and stopped her. The poised bodyguards silently retreated to the door. "Grandma! Don't be like this." Jessica's face was pale, and saying this seemed to drain all her strength. "It's my fault, I didn't protect the baby well, it has nothing to do with Miss Lydia." Tears fell as she began to wobble. I remembered the moment the truck was about to hit me, a blue figure rushed over and pulled me hard. It was because of that pull that I survived. It was Jessica Foster who saved me. Seeing my gaze fixed on her, the girl forced a smile. She habitually touched her belly, but it was flat now, and her clothes clung to her flat stomach. Her fingers curled, not knowing where to place them, and her eyes met mine full of apology. I'm sorry, Miss Lydia, it's all my fault. What did you do wrong? I let go of my anger and asked her. She was stunned for a few seconds, as if thinking about the question. If it weren't for my appearance, none of this would have happened. If not you, it would have been someone else. I smiled at her, but it was a terrible smile. We should have been rivals in love, but at this moment, there was no animosity. Jessica Foster, wasn't she also a victim? In this farce, she was always weak, manipulated, but kind. You are also at fault. The old lady suddenly turned on her. How many times have I told you? Your job is to protect my precious great-grandson. But what did you do? You risked your life to save this damned witch. Why didn't you die with my precious great-grandson? How dare you stop me? Perhaps she had never seen such a scene before. Jessica was stunned by the old lady's scolding, her face drained of color. Keep cursing. I looked at my watch. In 3 minutes, you'll only be able to curse in prison. The old lady's fiery eyes showed a hint of surprise. I kindly explained, the police will be here soon. As if remembering something, I added. Oh, wait, I don't think cursing is allowed in prison. Then you won't have a chance, hold it in. The old lady's cloudy eyes finally began to show fear. She blurted out, how did you know? Come on, it's the information age. Did she really think what she did was hidden? Old fool. The police arrived, 2 men and 1 woman. The leading officer took out his badge and showed it to the old lady. You are Mary Shaw, right? You've been reported for murder. Come with us. The old lady was a bit confused. Having been called Grandma Smith and Mrs. Smith all her life, she seemed unfamiliar with the name Mary Shaw and took a while to react. She suddenly became agitated, her face flushed, and she waved her hands wildly. It's not me. I didn't do it. The policewoman stepped forward to restrain her. Assaulting a police officer adds to your crime. The old lady instantly quieted down, like an indignant quail, daring to be angry but not to speak. The police were about to take the old lady out the door when they unexpectedly ran into Reuben Smith, who had rushed over. What are you doing? Why are you handcuffing my grandma? He rushed to the old lady, full of worry, trying to pull the handcuffs off, but was stopped by the police. Mary Shaw is suspected of murdering Miss Lydia. We need to take her back to the station for investigation. What murder? How could my grandma be involved in a murder? Reuben was shocked, and he rushed to my bedside in a few steps, intending to grab my hand, but my mom slapped his hand away. Don't touch my daughter with your dirty hands. Reuben could only withdraw awkwardly. Lydia, quickly say that grandma didn't murder you. Explain to them. I hadn't spoken yet when the policewoman's cold voice rang out again. Mr. Smith, you don't need to trouble Miss Lydia. Whether Mary Shaw committed murder will be determined by the law. Reuben didn't listen and continued to bombard the policewoman. I'll call your chief right now. Don't think you can just fabricate evidence and take my grandma away. She's a member of the Smith family, not someone you can just take like some stray cat or dog. Reuben said, pulling out his phone and dialing a number, but no one answered. When he dialed again, it was busy. Humph, Mr. Smith, you talk big. One might think you were the president. Even the president wouldn't be as imposing as you. After all, in our country, you have to follow our laws. The policewoman, who had been expressionless since entering, now showed a hint of sarcasm, and her words were sharp. Reuben finally gave up on calling. Just when everyone thought he was going to give up on the old lady, he suddenly spoke. It wasn't Grandma who did it. His gaze turned to the old lady, but his words were directed at the police. It was me. I used Grandma's name to hire a killer. He struggled to get the words out, his shoulders slumped, and he looked defeated. Very well. The policewoman clapped her hands twice. Since both of you are involved, you'll both be taken away. Reuben and the old lady were forcibly taken away. The room suddenly became much quieter. Then I won't disturb your rest. Jessica Foster, who had been silent, looked like she had gone through an ordeal, drenched in sweat, barely able to stand, her voice weak. I said, "You're not disturbing me." She had just reached the door when she paused and then turned back, her eyes shining brightly. "What?" I repeated. I said, "You didn't disturb me." "Jessica Foster, thank you. And, welcome." Jessica moved to the hospital room next to mine. She liked to come over to my room whenever she had free time. From being cautious at first, 3 days later, she practically lived in my room except when she was sleeping. "Lydia, does it hurt?" Jessica handed me a peeled apple, her eyes moist. "It hurts." How could it not hurt? It wasn't just physical pain, but also psychological pain. Grandma Smith, who practically watched me grow up, wanted to kill me. And my childhood sweetheart boyfriend tried to twist the truth to protect the murderer. It was too absurd and too ridiculous. But after the pain and crying, I felt relieved. We can't control others, the only thing we can control is ourselves. She seemed to be influenced by me and smiled, revealing 2 shallow dimples. "And Mr. Smith?" She hesitated. In the past few days, no one from the Smith family had shown up, and we tacitly avoided mentioning him. "That's his choice." I took a bite of the apple, the hatred spreading in my chest. Grandma Smith and Reuben Smith had been detained. Smith Group's stock price plummeted, causing panic within the company. Last night, my mom asked if I still had any feelings for Reuben Smith. If not, she was ready to take action, as it was a good opportunity to strike while the iron was hot. I shook my head firmly. Now, I only had hatred for the Smith family. How could there be any lingering feelings? "Do you still love him?" I raised an eyebrow and asked in return. Jessica paused her apple-biting motion, her eyes somewhat dazed. A few seconds later, as if she had figured things out, she said with relief, "Actually, from the beginning, I was just grateful to him and Grandma Smith. It was clearly the Foster family's fault back then, but they accepted me, treated me well, and treated the child in my belly well. After you came back, Mr. Smith." She thought for a moment and then corrected herself. "Reuben Smith often got drunk, and Grandma Smith started to resent me for not being able to keep a man. During that time, I was very tormented, and I had to go to the hospital twice to protect the pregnancy. A few days ago, I had a car accident and lost the baby. Reuben Smith threw a $3 million check at me and told me never to appear in front of him again. And Grandma Smith, the way she looked at me, it was like she wanted to tear me apart. I began to realize that in their eyes, I was just a tool. A tool to carry on their bloodline." Hearing this, I gently held Jessica with my free hand. "Jessica, you are important. You should live for yourself. The Foster family's mistakes and the Smith family's mistakes are not yours to bear." She tightly grasped my hand in return and nodded vigorously. "Lydia, you're right." The moment I lost the baby, my heart suddenly felt empty. I started to reflect on the first half of my life and realized that I had never lived for myself. From now on, I want to be myself. The Smith Corporation collapsed quickly. Reuben's domineering behavior had long since caused dissatisfaction among many people. This time, with everyone pushing the wall down and my mother's added efforts, the Smith Corporation was divided and devoured within just a month. On the day the Smith Corporation was completely liquidated, I submitted new evidence to the court as the plaintiff in a criminal case. The trial for Reuben's attempted murder began, and because the evidence was conclusive, along with the diagnosis I provided proving that Mary Shaw did not have any mental illness, Mary Shaw was sentenced, and Reuben Smith was acquitted. I went to see Reuben on the day he was released. I wore a fitted red dress with my hair styled in an elegant updo. In contrast, Reuben's clothes from before his imprisonment looked a bit loose, and his eyes flickered, suggesting he had suffered quite a bit. When he saw me, his eyes lit up, and he almost ran up to me. "Lydia, I knew you couldn't let me go." He opened his arms, attempting to hug me. I stepped back. "Stop being disgusting. I'm here to laugh at you. Reuben Smith, when you are destitute in the future, remember my words today. Everything you are experiencing is your own doing." "It's karma," I said angrily, watching as Reuben's face gradually turned pale, and I felt an instant sense of relief. "Lydia, what nonsense are you talking about?" "Oh, the information in prison is limited. He still doesn't know that the Smith Corporation is gone and the Smith family assets have been auctioned off. His relatives and friends have all stayed away from him since his detention, and no one has visited him. So, he knows nothing about the current situation. Reuben frowned. Grandma asked someone to hit you because she was old and confused, but I always loved you. Can't you see that? After completely losing hope in Reuben, I realized he was arrogant, irresponsible, and indecisive. But today, he showed me his ability to twist the truth and blur the lines between right and wrong. I just felt disgusted. My youth wasn't wasted, but my youth had an evil dog. I called the driver and asked him to leave as quickly as possible. My mentor had called me early in the morning, urging me to return to the project meeting quickly. I had no need to waste more time on him. 2 years later, in Germany, I participated in a public medical experiment competition, and after I skillfully completed the experiment, the audience applauded thunderously. My eyes scanned the second row, where my mother, in a fuchsia dress, had tears glistening in her eyes. Next to her was my best friend, Jessica, shouting, "Lydia is the best," and clapping vigorously. After expressing my thanks, I left the stage. "Lydia! You were amazing." Jessica jumped over to hug me. She had used the breakup fee from Reuben to apply to an art school in Paris and is now a second-year graduate student. She is now lively and beautiful, no longer the timid girl she once was. My mother handed me a bouquet and gently hugged me. "You are Mom's pride." I hugged my mother back. "Mom, you are my pride too." As for Reuben Smith, an insignificant person, no one ever mentioned him again.